My name is Eleanor Brooks. I am 61 years old. For a long time, I believed a quiet life was a successful life. I believed if no one complained, if no one argued, if no one raised their voice, then everything must be fine. I grew up watching my mother put herself last, without ever saying it out loud. She never called it sacrifice. She called it responsibility. I learned early that asking for too much was considered selfish, so I learned how to need less. I married young, not because I was sure, but because it was expected. My husband was not cruel, he was simply absent in the way that leaves no bruises, only emptiness. When he passed away, people said I was strong. What they really meant was, I did not cause inconvenience. I raised my children believing love meant giving without counting. Meals, time, sleep, dreams. I gave everything quietly, convinced that one day it would come back to me as respect. I never imagined that the very silence I perfected would later be used against me. I thought I was building peace. I did not realize I was training people to live comfortably without my voice. After my husband died, time began to move differently. Days felt longer, but my place in them felt smaller. My children were grown, busy, independent. At least, that is what I told myself whenever weeks passed without a visit. When my health slowed, concern finally appeared. Not sudden concern, careful concern. Phone calls became frequent. Advice followed. You shouldn't live alone anymore. It's safer this way. Let us help. Their words sounded kind, but kindness has a tone, and something about their tone felt measured. I agreed to small changes first: a shared calendar, a ride to appointments, someone checking my mail. None of it felt threatening. But care, when layered slowly, can become control without announcing itself. I noticed decisions were discussed around me, not with me. Suggestions became plans. Plans became expectations. When I hesitated, silence followed. Not anger, disappointment, the kind that makes you question your gratitude. So I thanked them more, smiled longer, explained myself carefully, because I did not want to appear difficult. I did not realize how expensive that fear would become. Control rarely begins with force. It begins with comfort and the quiet belief that you owe someone for their concern. The suggestion came softly, not as a demand, not as an order, as concern. It's only temporary, they said, until you feel better. I remember standing in my living room, looking at walls that had held my life. Every corner had a memory: a chair by the window where I drank tea on quiet afternoons, a shelf with photographs no one looked at anymore. I packed slowly, not because I was unsure, but because every object felt like proof that I had existed fully once. When I arrived at their house, everything was clean, organized, efficient, and none of it was mine. They showed me my room. It's cozy, they said. It was small: a bed, a dresser, a lamp that buzzed softly when turned on. The door closed differently there, not with comfort, but with finality. At first, I told myself this was adjustment, that belonging takes time, but something subtle shifted. I stopped deciding when to sleep. I stopped choosing what to eat. Even my tone changed. I spoke more carefully, as if my words occupied space that did not belong to me. I began asking before doing things I once did without thought, and each time I asked, something inside me shrank. You don't notice the moment freedom leaves. You notice it later, when asking permission starts to feel normal. Days began to repeat themselves, not in a comforting way, but in a narrowing one. I woke up to the sound of movement outside my door, not because I wanted to, but because the house had already decided the day had begun. Breakfast was prepared before I reached the kitchen. Plates were placed, choices were not. No sugar for you. Sit here. That chair is better. None of it was said harshly. That was the part that confused me. Because how do you object to instructions delivered with smiles? I began to feel like a guest who had stayed too long. I learned the rules without being told, which cupboards were off limits, which conversations were not meant for me. When laughter filled the room, I smiled automatically, even when I wasn't included. Sometimes they spoke about plans as if I were furniture. She'll be fine here. She doesn't go out much anyway. I wanted to correct them. I wanted to say that I once had a life that stretched beyond these walls, but my voice felt out of place, so I swallowed the words. Again, I told myself this was gratitude, that causing no trouble was a form of love. But deep inside, something ached. Not loudly, quietly, the way dignity aches when it is slowly misplaced. The hardest loss is not freedom. It is realizing you have become invisible while standing in a full room.
It happened on an ordinary evening. No argument, no raised voices, just one sentence. I was standing in the kitchen, washing a cup I had already used, out of habit, out of fear of leaving something undone. They were talking behind me, not quietly, just carelessly. "She doesn't really need a say," one of them said. The words floated in the air like they were harmless, like they didn't belong to me, but I felt them land. Heavy. I stood still, my hands submerged in water that had gone cold. I waited for someone to correct it, to soften it. No one did. Instead, the conversation moved on, as if I were not there, as if I were a detail already settled. I finished washing the cup, placed it on the rack carefully. That small act felt important, because inside, something had cracked, not loudly, quietly. That night, I lay awake longer than usual. I replayed the sentence again and again, not in anger, but in disbelief. Is this how they see me now? Not as a mother, not as a woman, as a responsibility, a managed object. I realized then that disrespect does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers until you finally hear it. People don't cross suddenly. They cross them when they believe you no longer see them. After that evening, I changed in ways no one noticed. I did not confront them. I did not cry. I did not explain. I simply stopped defending myself in my own mind. Before, every sharp moment came with excuses. They're tired. They don't mean it. I should be more understanding. That night, I made no excuses. I let the truth sit beside me, uncomfortable, clear. The next morning, I listened more than I spoke, not out of fear, but curiosity. I watched how decisions were made without me, how my name was used in conversations I was not invited into. She'll agree. She won't mind. She understands. They said it with confidence, because for years they had been right. I noticed how often my silence was mistaken for consent, and how convenient that misunderstanding was. I began to reclaim small things. I chose when to sit, when to rest, when to speak. I answered questions slowly, not because I was confused, but because I was thinking. Something inside me was waking up, not anger, awareness. And awareness is dangerous to those who rely on your compliance. The moment you stop explaining your worth, people begin to wonder why you don't need their permission anymore.
It started with small comments, casual ones. Why don't we handle that for you? It's easier this way. You shouldn't stress over numbers. They said it like advice. I heard it like a warning. My pension arrived as it always had, but the conversation around it changed. Receipts were discussed without showing me. Bills were explained after being paid. I was informed, not consulted. One afternoon, I realized something unsettling. I no longer knew exactly what I owned, not fully, not clearly. My card was kept for safety. My papers were stored to avoid confusion. I asked once, lightly. The response was polite but firm. Don't worry about it. We've got it covered. That sentence again. Covered. As if my life were a surface they were now responsible for. I did not argue, but I paid attention. I noticed how often dependence is encouraged before it is enforced, how comfort is offered until autonomy feels unnecessary. I realized something important. They were not stealing, they were assuming I would not push back, assuming I would remain grateful, assuming I would stay quiet. They had mistaken my patience for permission. Control does not always take something away. Sometimes it convinces you that you never needed it in the first place. I did not notice it at first. Isolation does not arrive with locked doors. It arrives with hesitation. Phone calls became shorter, not because people stopped caring, but because I stopped explaining. When friends asked, "How are you really?" I said, "I'm fine," because anything else required energy I no longer had. Outings were discussed as inconveniences. You don't need to go. It's tiring for you. We can handle it. My world slowly folded inward. Rooms replaced streets. Silence replaced choice. I began measuring my days by meals and television shows I did not choose. Even memories felt distant, as if my past life belonged to someone else. There were moments when I sat by the window and watched people pass by, young, busy, unaware. I wondered when I had stopped being part of the world and started being stored inside it. Loneliness is strange. It does not scream. It sits beside you, patiently, until you believe this is what life was always meant to be. When your world becomes small enough, you begin to forget there was ever anything more.
It happened on an ordinary afternoon. No argument, no raised voices, no dramatic moment, just a realization. I was sitting alone, watching the clock move without purpose, and suddenly I began counting, not minutes, days. I asked myself something I had avoided for years. How many of these do I have?
much I understood. I understood enough. Power changes are rarely loud. They are sensed, and sensing creates fear in those who benefit from things staying the same. The moment people realize you are no longer predictable, they start paying attention to every move you make. They did not argue, they did not shout, they changed strategy. Suddenly, I was reminded of sacrifices. After everything we've done, you know we only want what's best. You are misunderstanding our intentions. The words were soft, careful, designed to sound like love. Guilt has a familiar shape. It sounds like concern. It feels like obligation. For years, that feeling had worked. It made me doubt myself. It made me apologize for things I hadn't done. But this time, something was different. I listened without responding. I noticed how quickly care turned into pressure, how love became a reminder of debt. I asked myself a quiet question. If this is care, why does it feel like control? The answer came without emotion, because it was. I did not defend myself. I did not explain. I simply said, I need time to think. That sentence changed the room. Time is dangerous when someone relies on your immediacy. I felt the test, and for the first time, I passed it. Guilt only works when you believe you owe your life to someone else.
They did not argue.
Of being seen, I reviewed everything in my mind, what I had, what I needed, what I was willing to leave behind, not audience. I walked out not as someone escaping, but as someone arriving somewhere new. Outside, the air felt unfamiliar and free. For the first time in years, my life was not being managed, it was being lived. Leaving does not always look like running away. Sometimes it looks like finally standing still in your own life. Freedom did not arrive like happiness, it arrived like silence, the kind that does not ask anything from you. The first nights were strange. No schedules to follow, no permissions to seek, no explanations required. Just me and the quiet. I expected regret. It never came. Instead, there was space to think slowly, to breathe fully, to exist without being managed. Some days, memories surfaced, not to pull me back, but to remind me how far I had come. I realized something important. Freedom is not loud. It does not prove itself. It simply lets you be. I began choosing small things again. What to eat, where to walk, when to rest. Choices I once surrendered without noticing. And with each choice, I felt stronger. Not younger, stronger. People asked questions, some out of concern, some out of curiosity, some out of discomfort. I answered only when I wanted to. I owed no one my story, only myself my life. Looking back, I understand now. I did not lose my family. I found myself, and that was worth everything.